because net operating income grows. That's the power of multifamily. Now, let me show you how this works. I want you guys to do some math along with me. Don't worry, it's not difficult math. I'm not a math student. This is simple math, but it'll show you how powerful this is. So imagine that we are buying a $3 million property. We're buying a $30 million, $3 million property. We get a $2 million bank loan, and we bring in $1 million in cash. We raise rents over the next 5 years, and we double the value of the property. Net operating income doubles. Now, let's just say, I know we would have paid down some of the principal to the bank, but let's just say that we still owed the bank $2 million. How much is the property worth, first off, if we double rents? We took out a $2 million loan. We got $1 million in cash. We purchased it for $3 million. We raised rents. We doubled rents. $6 million. Kim got it. Exactly. It's worth $6 million because that's what the NOI says. Does everybody follow that so far? We bought it for $3 million. We double rents over 5 years. The building is now worth $6 million. Well, we pay back our $2 million bank loan. How much do we now have in cash? We have $4 million. Now, out of that $4 million, we have $1 million that we put in. Let's say that we raised $800,000 from investors and we double their money back to them. That's usually what we do for our investors. So we have 200,000 in. I have 100K in. Nate has 100K in. We raise 800,000. We double the money back to the investors, which they're happy. Would you like it if we doubled your money with zero risk inside of 5 years, or almost zero risk? I can't say zero, almost zero risk. So we double their money back. So we now pay out 1.6 of that 4. How much does that leave us with? It's what's 4 million minus 1.6? 2.4. $2.4 million is what we have that we can now take and buy another property with. You guys see how fast this works? Appreciation is the magic that makes multifamily work. Single family, it works on too, but it definitely works like that. For multifamily, it's a little bit more powerful just because of the NOI principle.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, I hope you're ready. Right now, it's that time of year where some of us start to think about taxes. I know some people wait until December 31st so they try to run it to their CPA at the end of the year, but if you want to make strategic moves, this is the time of year to do it. We're in the month of October at the time that we're doing this right now together, and this is the time that you want to actually start having conversations with your CPA, especially if you're a high income earner, especially if you've got some potential tax liabilities coming up. You still have time to make moves. So on today's broadcast, we're going to be going deep on that. I have a special guest. I'm going to introduce him in just a couple of minutes. A special guest who's one of the most genius people that I know when it comes to taxes, when it comes to not having to give as much to the IRS as you probably would if you didn't have knowledge from this person. So I'll bring him up in just a few minutes here. First, I got a housekeeping item. We have a book that goes along with today's training. It's an awesome book. The team spent a lot of time putting it together. If you want that book, then at any time during this broadcast, then type in the comments BOOK. This book goes through in depth what we're covering today. It's kind of like a little workbook. You can use it while we're on this live, or you can use it later when you sit down with your CPA. It's got the magic formula in it. This book is really good. You definitely want to have this. So just make sure you comment the word book, whether you're live on this platform or you're following us on social media somewhere, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. Then all you have to do is type in the comments the word book and our team will get it over to you. BOOK. Okay. So Thanks for joining, guys. This is special for me because roughly 9 years ago, I had a chance to get invited from one of my wealthy clients to his family office. The CPA that ran it and his attorney were basically, they were planning his taxes. They were planning his estate. They were making some moves. And I got introduced to this gentleman because I'm in the real estate business. I buy real estate and I help people get into really good deals. So he tells me the only way he could invest with me is if I go meet the family office. I Google search his family office. I quickly learned that you've got to have a $50 million net worth to get in this place. And it kind of intimidated me. I was picturing it be like this big council of people judging my real estate deals. When I got there, what I actually saw was a CPA, a financial planner, a couple of analysts, and an attorney. And it was their job to vet what their clients were doing. And so I sat down and they basically said, "Hey, Nate, tell us what you do." And I sat down and explained what I did. And at the end of it, they turned my world upside down in a good way. They showed me something that I just didn't know. And I had been in the business for some time, but I didn't understand all the complexities of really using the IRS tax code. We're talking about 4,000 pages of plus of tax code. Who really knows it? Our special guest does today. But I didn't know it. So when I sat down with these folks and they showed me what we could actually do, it opened my eyes. And now we've been using that formula for our business and we've been using it for our clients' business. And we're maximizing tax benefits for people when they invest into real estate. There are some rules. There are some requirements. There's no free lunch anywhere. And so today we're going to get into those. We're going to get into the depths of those and go through them one at a time together. So after I left the family office, I made a phone call to my CPA. And I said, "Hey, I don't understand, like this family office, they just showed me all these really cool tricks. And why are we doing that? Why can't we take this thing that they call accelerated depreciation? Why can't we maximize it? Why can't we do it all up front?" And my CPA said, no, you're not going to do that. I said, "Why not?" He said, no, because they're just going to have to repay all that anyways. I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "No, that'll never work for you. It won't work for you. We're not going to do that." Well, it took some time, but I ended up getting a different CPA, and I had to get better advice. I had to get better counsel. And the person that now does all of our taxes, all of our counsel, he's actually here with me today. He's our special guest. I want to introduce, and if I could, let's make sure that he's on camera and ready to go. Joe, if you are there, we're going to put you up here with me. Mr. Joseph Smith Schaefer, CPA. How are you, man?
Good. Thanks for having me, Nate.
So Joe, you got the halo effect today. This is really like the presence of God. You must be with you. Filled up, ready to go?
Yeah, ready to go.
Awesome. So the fine folks that we have with us today, these are mostly our clients and some folks that are checking us out on whether they should invest in deals, whether they should invest in real estate, and how they could potentially get some tax savings from that. And so I'm planning on just going deep. We'll go through all the letters of Sara, which we call it. It's what the family office taught us originally, but we'll go through all of them. Are you cool if we just kind of go back and forth and jam through them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to put them back up on the screen and I'll hit this first one. And then after I hit it, then I'll turn to Joe and we'll get expert commentary. Just look at me as the fun guy, okay? Joe's the expert. I'll be your fun guy today. So secret savings account, what they explained to me at the family office is that every single property should be bought with a long-term fixed rate loan. We're talking real estate here. And they wanted a long-term fixed rate because tenants, the number one, they didn't have to worry about the rate going up in the future. Number two, because there's some tax savings that they were picking up on paying interest. But number three, and most important, they called it the secret savings account because what happened is that their tenants were paying rent every single month. And when the tenants pay the rent, that rent is then turned around and applied towards the mortgage. When you pay a mortgage, you're actually paying down, if it's structured the right way, you're paying down the principal of the loan as well as the interest. And over time, especially over a long period of time, you can actually pay off the principal, or you can pay down the principal. And so what they said is that that's their secret savings account. And their tenants were the ones that were contributing to it every single month. Joe, what do you think about secret savings account? Is that a good idea, bad idea? And let me know from your perspective.
I It's honestly one of the best ideas, and when you can get somebody else to basically create equity for yourself. And these aren't people who are just giving you their money. They're people who they're living their lives, and in return, you're providing them, hopefully a safe place to live, nice amenities. But in return, they are creating equity for you, and the power of that is great. And in terms of whether it's single family or multi-family, you can only multiply the amount of growth that can happen there.
Cool. So just some nights ago, they had the vice presidential debate on JD Vance versus Tim Walz on. And I promised Joe coming into this meeting that these would be easy questions, stuff that he would own, he would mop up. But now I'm just thinking about a little bit. Maybe I'll throw a curveball at him on this next one. I'm just kidding, Joe. I won't go hard, but this one you're going to shine, okay? Accelerated depreciation. This one, Joe will do circles around me, but I'm going to give you the overview, okay? The overview is this. The family office was explaining to me that every time that they bought a piece of real estate, the IRS code recognizes that you're contributing something, and they try to give incentives for that. So basically they said, hey, you're providing housing, you're providing jobs, and in accordance, the IRS says we're going to give you some breaks. Now, I can't really call it a tax credit because it's not a tax credit, but I talk in simple terms. I got a 10-year-old boy. I got him involved with the business. He's got a couple of condos that he helps me with that are rentals. And so I always tell him, I said, hey, what accelerated depreciation is it's kind of like the government says stuff's going to wear out over time. So we're going to give you credit for that. And you can use that credit to offset some of your taxes. And so I tell him it's a tax credit, but legally it is not a tax credit. Joe, I'm going to throw this one to you. What is accelerated depreciation from a technical perspective, and how do we actually take advantage of it?
Mm-hmm. So accelerated appreciation, anytime you purchase, whether it's a property, a piece of equipment, in that first year that you purchase it, you have the opportunity to potentially accelerate, it's in the title, accelerate the life of the deductions that you're taking. So the way it works is if a property's useful life is considered to be 20 years or less, and that what falls under that range is equipment, vehicles. When we're talking real estate, it could be furniture, it could be improvements. It's really anything you can think of that isn't the overwhelming structure of a building. You have the ability to speed up that depreciation within the first year. How the tax law sits today is for 2024, you can take up to 60% of the basis of what you're paying within that first year. So if you have, let's say, $100,000 of improvements that you're placing in service in 2024, you could take up to 60% or a $60,000 deduction in the first year, and then the remainder of that is depreciated over the life. And it's a huge benefit because a lot of times, more often than not, people don't own property long enough to where they see it be fully depreciated. So they miss out on the benefits until they actually sell the property. So it's a way to actually take advantage while the property is in its early stages and get that benefit now. And then over time, you still get benefit, but it's an upfront thing that the government really lets you take advantage of.
This is beautiful, Joe. So you mentioned improvements. We're buying this property right here. God willing, it'll close in less than a week. This particular asset, we're going to build out some units upstairs. We're going to spend about $400,000 on those build outs. And what I think I heard, but I want you to correct the record if I'm wrong. What I think I heard is that per $100,000, I will get credit for up to 60% of it this year. If I spend the full 400, I'll get 60 times 4. I'll get $240,000 as potential that I can use as a benefit for my taxes this year. Did I hear that right?
Yep, that is correct.
That's amazing. And then on top of it, I can depreciate some of the existing things. It's not just new build or building new stuff, but stuff inside the building that exists already.
Right, right.
The
So
furniture,
yeah, I mean this.
fixtures.
Yep. So I mean, this type of structure is likely a 27 and a half year property. So what most people do, and you know what you've taken full advantage of in the past, is people may go out and get what's called cost segregation studies. They'll have a professional go through that building, and they'll break it down into every single class of asset. And you know, the ideal is that you get as much as you can that's under that 20-year threshold. So it's subject to that acceleration. And that's where the benefit comes from. And then on top of that, you have a professional backing your mentality of breaking out the costs that can, you know, put some support behind that.
That's awesome. I'm so glad you mentioned cost segregation. So we'll take a timeout from screen share for a second. So we order cost segregation studies for almost every property we buy. The only exception is if they're too small. If they're really little, it wouldn't be worth the expense of spending 8 to 10 grand to get one done. Now, why on earth would we spend 8 to 10 grand to get this special study? Joe told us, but I want to repeat the important part. You got this expert. They're kind of a hybrid of who Joe is. They understand tax law, depreciation, and all this kind of stuff. Plus, they understand buildings. They understand what they can depreciate and what they don't. And so they take that hybrid of knowledge and they write a third-party report that if for any reason the IRS in the future comes back and says, hey, I don't think you were actually eligible for all of those tax benefits that you took when you bought that piece of real estate, then we can stand up and say, hey, we got this third-party report. Here it is. Here's your credentials. And it's just another checkmark box of protection for you. So we spend it on almost every asset we buy. Again, the only time we don't spend is if the asset's too small, then it might not justify the $8,000 to $10,000 investment. Cool. Joe, anything else on accelerated depreciation? I think we're good there.
Yep.
Cool. Let's keep going. So our next one, by the way, if you guys want this book, I see we've got more people join us. If you guys want this book where we're literally break down the whole thing for you, then just comment the word book, B-O-O-K, in the chat section or the comment section, and our team will reach out to you and we'll get it over to you. Just B-O-O-K in the chat section and we'll get it over to you. Next, repair versus replace. Okay, so I'm sitting in the family office and they map this whole thing out. Literally, the client I'm working with at the time, he had $1 million of income he was making from one income stream. And his team wanted to essentially wipe out the tax liability on that income stream. In 10-year-old terms, remember, I got a 10-year-old boy, that means that he's making $1 million. They didn't want to pay tax on that. In his tax bracket, he would have paid at least 40%, if not 50% of it to the IRS and state taxes. So instead, what we were doing is we were buying properties that he could do a lot of repairs to. Now, think about this. You get into a property, like we're buying this one, God willing, we close on it next week. And we've got this floor up here. This floor is concrete and it's stained. Now, we could go in and put down new tile, or we could go in and we could sand this and we could restain it. Sanding and restaining in a lot of cases would be considered a repair. Putting down brand new tile, that would be considered a replacement or a new construction. And so what their family office explained to me that day is that we wanted to do a lot of repairs. The more repairs that we could do before the end of that calendar year, the more repairs that we could do would benefit that particular client by basically becoming a tax write-off for him. He put more money into repairs, and then he paid less tax on the money that he made on the other side from a different source. Joe, I'm going to toss this one to you for you to add color to it and add some perspective to it.
Yeah, so that's the biggest question that comes up every year, repair, replace, and it becomes more prevalent as we get to the end of the year because as we start to understand or better understand our tax situations, whether it's October, November, December, we can understand that there's things that we can do before the end of the year that could potentially change our tax outcome. And in terms of repair, replace, kind of the general rules with that is if you're going to replace something in its entirety, so we're talking a roof, a parking lot, If we're doing a complete repair, or I should use the correct term, replacement, if we're gonna get rid of the whole roof and we're gonna put a new roof on, that's likely a replacement. If we're doing a section of the roof, that's likely a repair. So there gets to be some gray areas in there, but in terms of taking advantage of these types of things, it's always great to speak with clients like Nate and identify before the end of the year, if we have an idea of this is what your tax situation might look like, are there any of these opportunities you can take advantage of? Because more likely than not, they're going to be something that improves the property, so it's not just a throwaway money to create a deduction. It's something that can really benefit both yourself and your tax situation.
Beautiful, beautiful. So now you heard it from Joe. The beauty that I learned in that family office that day is with these repairs, if you have enough of them, for that client, his team had mapped out which pieces of real estate we needed to buy and how much in repairs he needed to be able to wipe out his taxable income. And so now I want to talk about that for a second, because I know that sounds really, really big. Like this guy had $1 million of taxable income if he didn't do this the right way. And it was big. There are some rules to all this. There's no free lunch with anything. I don't want anybody coming on this webinar and jumping off and saying, oh my goodness, I can never pay tax again. All of us, 100% of us here, we are eligible for the same tax benefits that we're talking about here. All of us are on equal playing field. There's no special licensing required. There's no special certifications, nothing like that. But the government does cap the amount of taxable benefits you can take on a property if you're not an active real estate investor. They call it, this title, real estate professional. Okay, you can Google search it, but I'll give you just kind of the high level of it. It basically means you commit a certain number of hours per week, an average of about 12, or you commit to a certain substantial stake on the projects you're working on. Okay, there's some gray area in there, but we want you to do things the right way. Just do it the right way and you're okay. What we've seen some clients do, if they can't commit to those hours, or if they can't commit to a substantial stake in the project, sometimes they might have their spouse do it. My dentist, that's what he did. My dentist was busy being a dentist. His wife was a stay-at-home mom. And so they chose to go the path of having his wife become the person that did those hours and met all the qualifications. Now, if you're like, Nate, I can't, my wife can't, none of us can, is there anything else for us? Yes, these same tax benefits can apply to you. They're just going to be capped. They're going to limit at a certain amount. You can't take unlimited at any point. So it's advantageous to explore looking at both ways on this. Joe, is that fair for me to say it like that? Anything you'd add?
Yeah, so I'll say kind of the marker that the IRS sets is they set 750 hours spent on real estate activities during any given year. So, you could be a real estate agent. You could be somebody who flips houses. You could be somebody who owns and manages residential or commercial real estate. It's very wide ranging. But the IRS looks for you to hit that 750-hour mark per year. And like Nate said it perfectly, that's, if you look at it on a week-by-week basis, that'd be 12 to 15 hours per week. Once you meet that threshold, the only other threshold really that you want to meet is you have some minimal thresholds on an activity-by-activity basis. So if you have multiple properties, you want to make sure that you're kind of spreading out those hours. You're not just doing it all on one. If you want to be eligible to take losses on multiple, you got to hit minimal thresholds.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So let's keep moving. We're going to go over to the appreciation, and then we're going to open this up for questions. So I saw, Boris, you've got a question in there. We'll hit that. And then I know we had some questions submitted in advance. We'll make sure we get to those as well. So appreciation, this is probably my favorite one. And this is something not to be taken lightly. Okay, when the family office mapped this out for me that day, they talked about this thing that you might think of appreciation as just the value going up over time, naturally or organically. There is that effect in real estate most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. But in commercial real estate specifically, you can actually force the appreciation. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so we closed on this property. This is a property in Lexington, Kentucky. It's 9 little buildings just like this. Beautiful suburb. It's in Georgetown. It's next to multi-million-dollar estates, Class B location all the way around. Our cost seg guide just came back and told us it's Class B location. So this particular asset, what we're doing on it is we're going in, we took over the building at 100% occupancy. The current seller of it, well, just sold it to us last week. The seller on it had not bumped rents to market rents. He kept them intentionally low. That's why he had 100% occupancy with a waiting list. We're going in now as leases expire and we're updating the units. We're freshly painting them, making them nice, and then we're moving rents to market rate rent. What will happen over the next couple of years is we're eventually going to get through all of the units. There's 72 units, and we're going to drive the income up. The way commercial real estate works is that if you increase the income, specifically the net income, if you increase the net income, you increase the value of the property. That's called forced appreciation. It's very different than single family houses. Single family houses, you tend to get capped by what all your neighbors are selling for, because anyone that's buying from you is going to look at the comparable sales near you. For commercial real estate, they mainly rely on the rents. They'll look at rents of comparable properties around you as well. So our goal with any commercial piece of real estate is to increase the net income. So with this one, over the course of 3 to 5 years, our team will do that, God willing. We'll go in and do what we always do. We'll bump the rents up. Eventually, we'll have rents doubled in the property over that window, which then theoretically should double the value of the property. That's what we're projecting, and that's probably what we'll hit because we've done it time and time again. So on appreciation, you can do a couple of things. Like we create all of this equity. We bought this one for $7.75 million. If we double it, let's just call it $8 million to be simple numbers. If we double it and we turn it into a $16 million property at the end of 5 years or whenever that might be, we have a couple of options. We can sell it. Those of you that are following along with me, use the chat for this. If we sell it for 16 million and we had 8 million into it, how much money comes out? How much money comes out? What's 16 minus 8? I'm going to test your math skills on the fly to make sure I don't lose anybody on this. So we've got 8 million into it. We create a new value of 16 million. 16 minus 8, it's 8 million, right? Well, at that point, we have two choices. We could either sell it and cash in on that $8 million of equity, or we can go back to a bank. And this is the part where I'm going to call Joe in. We can go back to a bank and we can do a refinance. That's literally going and asking the bank for a new loan, which pays off the original loan. And a lot of times it will give us cash that we get to take on top of it. Joe, when that cash comes to us, let's just say that we get an extra $4 or $5 million of cash in this example. When that cash comes to us, is that taxable?
No, it is not, because all you're doing at that point is you're just pulling equity out of equity that you've built.
So this one always, like when I explain it to people, they're like, "What? How is that possible? I'm getting handed hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million, and I don't have to pay tax on it." What is the logic, or is there any depth you can give to that on why there's no tax?
I mean, it's you've created benefit over time with that property, and the bank in essence views that, and they're giving you credit for something that you've built over time, and understanding that they're just like all of us. They're looking for a return on investment. If they can up and give you an additional amount of money, they're looking, because it's still subject to interest. They're looking to get a return as well. So if anything, they're investing in you.
Cool. So IRS isn't getting paid. We get that money. We take it out tax-free at that point. Now, this is the part where, like, folks that are really leveraging their portfolio the right way, they'll take that cash out of the property. They won't go buy a boat with it. They're not buying a new car with it. They're buying another property. And then they're growing their portfolio continuously. So it's like one tax benefit that leads into another tax benefit. You take the refinance cash out of one property and you go buy another property and you pick up more accelerated depreciation. You pick up more repair versus replace. So that's the benefits that we're compounding to get here. Okay, Joe, right now it's October. Why is this stuff important? There's craziness happening in the news and all that kind of stuff, but like right now, why is it important to start talking about this stuff now and not on December 31st?
Yep. Yeah, this is always a good time of year. We were about a week and a half out from our extended deadline, and really after that, people 2023 is finally in the rearview mirror, and we're starting to focus on 2024. Whether you're someone who's been in business for a long time or this is your first year, it's a good time to kind of see how the year's coming to fruition. And are there any opportunities, whether that's from a tax standpoint or, kind of what we alluded to earlier, talking about repairs or, spending some dollars to not only create deductions, but to also improve your operations. Are there things like that we can take advantage of before the end of the year? Because once, 99% of taxpayers are on the calendar year basis. Once you pass that 12/31 mark, it's a new year. So anything you want to do, you got to do it before the end of the year.
Okay, you guys heard it. That's the bottom line. If you know you've got some tax liabilities coming, if you had a good year, if you sold something, if you made some extra money, and you know you got a tax liability coming, you got a couple months to make moves, but it goes fast. My favorite, I always get the calls in December from people saying, hey, I had this big gain. Do you have any piece of real estate that I can use? Like, I get so flooded in December, and at a certain point I have to say no, because we already had everybody come in October and November to us and place capital into different real estate deals for tax benefits. So just for everybody out there, like, make your moves now. Have conversations with the CPA. If you don't have a good CPA or you want to get another recommendation for one, then the guy that's on the camera right now, this is a guy that you want to talk to. I'll put up his contact information here in just a little bit too. Let's flip it over and take questions now. I saw one from Boris, and we also got some questions pre-submitted. So we'll just kind of go through on these. This is from Lydia. Lydia says, can I use an IRA or annuity money to purchase real estate? Joe, is that any expertise for you there? I can weigh in if not for you.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure about the annuity, but I know you can use an IRA. So it's really called a self-directed IRA, and you're taking your retirement investments and you're investing in, what they consider non-traditional investments. So you're not investing in publicly traded companies or stocks or mutual funds. You're instead taking those dollars and investing in real estate. So yeah, that's called a self-directed IRA.
Awesome. Boris is asking, accelerated depreciation, can it be applied to a property that you've owned for a while that needs renovation?
Yes, it can. So even if you've owned a property for a while, if you're making new improvements to that property, all it boils down to is when those improvements, we'll say, are being placed in service. So when you're completed with that, and even if it's on an old property, we're going to place those improvements in service, and they're subject to, we're able to take accelerated depreciation.
Cool. Sina's asking, what can investors do to protect their assets? And I'm guessing she's talking about tax structure because that's kind of the subject for the day. Is there any asset protection? I know you're not an attorney, Joe, but anything from just a tax liability perspective that you would do to protect assets?
Yeah, the biggest one, everybody hears about the LLC, or the limited liability company. Every state kind of has a different view on what the LLC means and what it stands for. But in general, assets that go inside of a limited liability company are subject to protection. And who the protection is for is the rest of your assets outside of that company. So in general, if you are subject to getting sued or something happens in that specific asset that's in that LLC, the most your damages can amount to is what's inside of there.
Cool. And I'm going to give the public disclaimer for Joe and for I. we're having fun and just sharing general knowledge today. We can't give specific legal or tax advice. If you want that, then I'm going to put Joe's information up in just a little bit here, and you can reach out to Joe so he can understand your actual personal situation, and then he can probably give you the best advice possible. Next one from Peter. How many machine shops do you have at the present? How many do you plan on purchasing? So great question. So we started investing in industrial real estate a couple of years ago. Our partner that we chose to operate inside that business, he's been in it longer than we have. But we got in a couple of years ago. Right now we've got 5. We're closing one of them in just a little bit here. So 4 with 1 almost on the way. How many will we purchase? It's still to be determined. We're closing out cash flow fund number 7 right now. It's got a little bit of room left in it, but it will be closed out sometime in the next 3 weeks. The last couple of times that we opened it up, it filled up immediately when we had a deal to place capital in. So that one will close up, and then the future will tell us. What we're doing right now is we're doing a roll-up. It's just a fancy term for we're taking a whole bunch of mom and pop industrial pieces of real estate that happen to have machine shops on them, and we're putting in business processes, business systems. We're making them the way that they should be operated. Literally, one of the shops that we bought, they were taking orders by phone, and then they would go on the shop floor and they would post it up on the wall, and then all the guys would fulfill the work order. We're improving that. We're putting in softwares. We're putting in an ERP system, which is a fancy name for software that manages the floor. We're putting in CRM so that they can have a salesperson making phone calls and going on the road. And we're dramatically improving the bottom line. One of our shops that we bought, we're already up 37% year over year on that one, just by implementing these systems that we're talking about. So how many will we buy? I'm not sure yet. We're going to buy enough to make sure that we can hit the threshold for most private equity firms that are buying out roll-ups like this. It's usually about 10 million in EBITDA. So maybe we double what we have right now. We'll see. The future will tell us very soon. Great question. Barbara says, where is a person money and retirement investment money going to be safe and secure? Okay, I see, just a little typo. So Barbara says, where's my money safe? If I'm going to put my retirement somewhere, where is it safe and secure? And I know that's a very broad question. Joe, do you got any perspective?
Yeah, so I mean, not a financial advisor by any means here.
They're hitting us with legal and financial questions today, Joe.
Yep. So that's the toughest question. That's the question that nobody has the crystal ball for. We've had public markets in terms of stocks, mutual funds that have been around for over 100 years now. Those are things that, if you look at it in time as a whole, it's received a depending on what you invest in, but it's received a general appreciation over time. But as we have just come out of a pandemic 2 or 3 years ago, you can see that the fluctuations can be high and they can be low. So, in terms of you want to invest in something like that, or, real estate is something that's in general over time held its value very well as well. So, and same goes for the stock market as real estate. Anybody who was living back in or aware of what was going on back in 2008, 2009 knows that there can be ups and downs in that as well. So
awesome. And that is a very broad question. So just do what you feel comfortable with, do your research, do your homework, diversification. Like, there's all timeless principles that go into this, but you gotta do research and then do what you feel very comfortable with in the end. You'll eventually find people that you like and trust because they perform. Once you have those people on your side, then stick with them and seek counsel from them. A lot of people don't seek counsel. I'll tell you, like, even this week, just was it yesterday or the day before? Joe, you and I had a call. We had my CFO on the call. We were going through tax planning. We were buttoning up the one of the tax returns for me personally. Like, we were strategizing. We were talking about stuff. We're not waiting until the last minute and then saying, "Oh shoot, I should." No. Like, get your advisors and then take counsel from them. Okay. Glenn says, what companies are best for asset formation for a self-directed IRA? Glenn, I'll tackle that. Joe, you can add on if you got anything, but most people use an LLC for that. Again, we're not legal guys. You want to ask the attorney that question, but we work with a lot of clients that set up self-directed IRAs. And if it's truly self-directed where you have checkbook control, then most people that I see set up an LLC for it. Next one from Benjamin. Benjamin says, what are the implications on my unrealized gains? Joe, can you bite off that one?
Yep. So as the tax landscape sits today, unrealized gains they're not taxable. There was some horror stories a couple years back that talked about law changes where on an annual basis, if your income was over a certain threshold, your unrealized gains might be taxed on an annual basis. But that's not where it's at today, and that's not something that we see today either happening based on what the political climate is. So it's your unrealized gains are safe for now.
Yeah, I concur. So what this is, if anyone's like, what the heck is he talking about? There is no unrealized gains tax, at least on a broad scale right now. What it was is a policy proposal from the Harris administration. The Harris administration said, we're going to tax the billionaires. Anyone that's got 100 billion or more, or they've got to make 100 million or more in income or in assets, then we're going to tax them. Anytime their assets go up in value, we're going to tax them. The concept of that, it sounds nice as a campaign pledge when you're talking. Well, it sounds nice for one side. It sounds nice for her to be able to say that from a marketing perspective. But from an actual implementation perspective, I don't think it could ever get through. And here's why. And I'm going to go a little political on you, but you've got a whole bunch of people in the Senate and Congress, the other two branches that are in power, that have a lot of assets. They have a lot of stocks. And could you imagine if one of those politicians is sitting on Apple stock that they bought 10 years ago and it's more than doubled in value since then? They don't want to pay taxable gains on that. They would veto that in a second. They're not going to sign that. So I think it's a nice campaign pledge from a marketing perspective for what Harris is trying to do, but I don't think it could ever be implemented in this country. I don't see it ever happening. But if it did, then their pledge would be that it's after billionaires, 100 million or more first, and then who knows, maybe it could trickle down. You'd have time to make moves is my point, or at least I believe that. I'm not running for my life, stashing assets in other countries and things like that. I'm not doing any of that because I don't think it would ever see the light of day in this country. Okay, next one, and I'm going to use this to transition as well because Jeff asked a great question. He said, am I better off to take my cash and invest it in another good deal like one that you have, or convert my traditional IRA to a Roth IRA and invest later? So Jeff, that's a personal question, and we probably have to dissect on a one-on-one call for that. Philip or CJ, could you guys put the one-on-one call link in the chat for me? I'd appreciate that. And Jeff, if you want to jump on a call, we can go through that and dissect it. I just don't want to give you bad advice kind of in a public format. It's really up to you. What is it going to match your goals mostly? If you're looking for a killer deal, we just got this one, literally got under contract, and we're closing it, God willing, by the middle of next week. This one we're buying it for 3.5. Now here's the shocker. The seller bought this for 5.7 million 2 years ago. They bought it for 5.7 2 years ago. They're selling it to us today for 3.5. How did we do that? Well, here's the thing. They tried to convert it from a multifamily property into an Airbnb for traveling nurses. It didn't go well. They failed at it and they want out. They're ready to just sign off and get rid of it. They've got a bank loan on it for around what we're paying for it. And we're stepping in and taking out that loan. And that's how we got this killer deal. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's Class A. This is in Memphis, Tennessee, Closegate community in a superb area. Literally, it's 50.5% college grads in this area. Their average income is $89,000. I walked it. I spent time here. I slept right around the corner. Like I got there and I felt it. I really wanted to know it was good and legit. This is the home run of the year. If you're looking for a deal like that, what happens is that we're buying it, and within 2 years, we plan to go back to the bank and do a cash out refinance and return capital to our investors. If that sounds exciting, where you could get into a deal and get your money back within 2 years and then still get cash flow as long as we own that asset, then book a call. Our call spots they're not very plentiful right now because we've had so much interest in this particular asset. If you're looking for a tax play, we talked a lot about this accelerated depreciation. We have one property that is loaded with good tax benefits that you could still possibly grab a spot on. It's this beautiful brick building right here. There's 9 of these all on one campus. This is in Georgetown, Kentucky. This is where you go for the tax play. If you're just trying to pick up on some of the benefits we've been talking about here, then book a call with us, talk to one of our investment advisors on our investor relations team, and we'll walk you through the details of that. Last but not least, if you guys could please just help me just say thank you to Joe with a thanks Joe in the chat. I'm going to put up his contact information right here. Joe volunteered this time. I didn't pay him to come here, at least not that I'm aware of. Maybe I'll get an invoice for this later. But when we reached out to him and said, "Hey Joe, would you do this?" He said, "Yeah, absolutely. For your guys' team, absolutely." Joe's been such a reliable partner in this business. He's not like an equity partner in deals, but I call him a partner because I feel that way. We've sent him a lot of referrals. He always takes care of them. And he's the guy ultimately that I turn to for counsel when we're doing these deals. So he knows us inside and out, and he knows this business inside and out. So if you're looking at some of your tax angles and what you should do for the future, I highly recommend you screenshot this and then shoot him an email. Right now it's October. Pretty soon it's going to be December. Time flies. And so grab a spot with him before the end of the year and start doing some of your tax planning. Joe, thank you so much for doing this with me today. We appreciate you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Nate.
Yeah. So I'm going to close it with this in hopes that each of you got some piece of knowledge today that's benefit that can help you.
Thank you very much, Joe.
Yeah. Thank you. So I hope everybody got some nuggets, some gold today, some knowledge that can help you, because this tax stuff, it's a little bit complicated, but let's get you to help eliminate some of that tax burden still this year. There's time. Okay. Also, I'm going to ask this, save the date. We have a series coming up. It's a 3-part series called the Distressed Asset Advantage. You don't want to miss it. It's how we're picking up killer deals. Like when you can buy a deal, like the one that I just put up on the screen a second ago, that someone paid 5.7 for it and we're picking it up for 3.5 2 years later. When you can buy deals like this, you create so much equity when you buy. And it's because this was a distressed asset. And so we're going to go through a series starting on October 17th. So mark that down. I don't have a link for you or anything to sign up yet. You'll get communication from us, but mark it down, October 17th. And then we'll do a second session November 2nd. And then we'll wrap up the whole thing on November 15th and 16th. You don't want to miss that. But for now, on behalf of our entire team, thank you, Joe, and thank you guys for coming to the event today. Thank you.